Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Jacko. It's to go. You either know or you don't. So, what exactly is happening in Black Clover? We've been introduced to many concepts since the beginning of the series, but we've received very little, if any, information on the origin lore for most species and systems within the series. Today, I wanted to look at one of those species left largely unexplained, and that would be the spirits. The spirits are not only fascinating, but they are one of these topics in the series that has not been fleshed out at all. They popped in the series and we just kind of accepted them, but where exactly did they come from? See, a long time ago, I had made a video suggesting that the spirits would be connected to Lilith. I said this because that's how it's explained in Judaic lore. However, there are more sources that say different things. In occult lore, that I love to reference a lot, each spirit is connected to different realms. Cornelius Agrippa places each of the four spirits into the archetypal realms corresponding to Jacob's ladder, with earth spirits or gnomes, with the underworld and devils. But I want to use a different type of lore today. Kind of. While it relates to a source, I just want to use this one piece of contextual evidence from Berserk. As we should all know, Berserk is one of the series Tabata is inspired by, and we see how much that actually plays out in Black Clover. The piece of evidence I'd like to lay out on the table for discussion is what one of the mages in Berserk revealed about spirits. He says that elemental spirits are the heroes of the past. People that did incredible things for humanity and were essentially chosen to live on to aid the development of the world. With this one line, your boy hopped into his crackhead jackbag and pulled out a theory. So if we take this line, then we would apply it to the current spirits and any potential successors. We can't say too much about Undine, Salamander, or the Earth Spirit, but I can and have based this theory around Juno's wind spirit, Bel. This is a crazy idea, but I'm going to come right out and say it. Before Bel was ever a wind spirit, she was a mage known as Tetia Silvermillion Clover. I told you it was going to sound crazy, but let's look at what we have. Bel is a wind spirit and Tetia was a wind mage. Basic. Really, Jack? You actually press record because they have the same magic? Okay, hear me out. Where do we first meet Bel? In the dungeon just before Asta is about to get waxed by Mars. But just before that, we find out that she had been sealed within a scroll, yet no one really questions why that was. Out of Salamander and Undine, we've not heard or seen this except for this one instance. Who would seal away a spirit, then further lock them away in a dungeon? Bella's obviously somehow important to the grander scheme of things, and to be honest, my inner devil nerd wants to tell you all that this is an effort to keep Lucifer, the real deal, from ever manifesting completely, since Lucifer is attributed to wind, or more specifically, aether. But here's the other one. I'm thinking there's much more to Tetia's story, maybe something within the scope of what I made a video about a while back. We have to consider that Tetia survived that massacre, meaning she did not go back to the Clover Kingdom to be back with her family, which makes sense because her family would have to have been involved in that massacre, which killed her family and almost herself. So why go back to a family that had betrayed you? So, where would she go afterward? My thought on this is that the only other place she could have gone that makes sense with the story that we have is Elysia. I would have to assume the Dryad would have reached out to her hybrid son, where he very clearly continued his bloodline. In Elysia, we are aware that the Dryad can teach people about the origin of souls and draw closer to mana. I've said this a lot in the past few videos and on Twitter, but we see that mana seems to corrupt more than it purifies, and when mana is taken in at excessive amounts, it literally transforms the mage. This is something we see with Licht, Sekre, Patri, and now Mereoleona. What if somehow Tetia at some point in her life transformed into a spirit by drawing closer to mana itself? Something to back this thought is what we see happening with Mereoleona. She is drawn so close to mana that her human body can no longer maintain its shape. What I'm suggesting here is the possibility that instead of Mario Leona taking Nama's place, as I suggested in a previous video, she would be transforming into a fire spirit. We see that her facial features in her Hellfire Incarnate mode seems to resemble the markings around the eyes of Fuegolian's salamander. What this presents is that the structure of beings in this world are tied to certain conditions. In this case, a human with a classic elemental attribute who draws too close to mana undergoes a forced transformation into a spirit of that classical affinity. So, back to Belle really quick. Well, actually, before I go any further, I do want to admit that this theory with Belle and Tetia is a little crazy, but I'm only using this as a foundation to get you guys to see what I am envisioning. So back to Belle. I feel as though any being that undergoes a transformation into the next level of being in order to hold more mana, they end up losing semblance of who they were in the previous life. This would explain why Belle doesn't go by the name Tetia, but does somewhat explain some events we see in the series. Taking into account that Yuno's wind magic is not his own, but the spirit of Lick's surviving son, she chose him and not technically Yuno. Consider that at least one of Tetia's children would have inherited wind magic. This child would be a human-elf hybrid, and hybrids are usually stronger than the species that came together to create them. So take that into account, and I see no way the spirit would have gone to anyone else aside from that child, as they would be the strongest wind mage in existence. I don't think it's too far of a jump to make to say that he would have been the strongest wind mage, since in the beginning of the series they do state that wind mages in particular are especially rare, and the only other one we know of is one of the spirit guardians who is, well, completely irrelevant. Also not counting the air mage from the Golden Dawn, in which Yuno still would scale way above. But what I'm getting at is that it could be possible that they sealed Tetia, in this case, as a sylph within the dungeon with one of her husband's swords, because there may have been a plan to make sure that Lick's descendants inherited both the Demon Dweller sword and the Wind Spirit for reasons unknown to us at the moment. Now, like I said, I understand the Tetia Belle theory is pretty shaky, but the point I'm driving at is that we could potentially be watching the making of a spirit with Mario Leona drawing so close to mana. I believe that each species will have a specific transformation. I believe humans with classical elements as attributes will become spirits, and humans that use forbidden magic with less classical elemental magic become corrupted and become something that reflects their soul, much like Sekre did. I say this because humans now seem to be reflecting Greek and Norse gods who have been known to take shapes of animals. For example, Zeus was known to come to the earth in the form of a satyr and a swan, and this seems to reflect Sekre being able to shift from a bird back to human. Then we have elves, whom I believe may become supreme devils once they've gone through the dark elf process, which obviously includes an extreme amount of despair. Dwarves may have their own transformation, and I do speculate that we will find that Jotun have their own transformation as well, which might be the beings that oppose the Clepodic orders, reason being that this should be reflecting the Aesir and Vanir war in Norse mythology. Not to mention the fact that angels in most lore are enormous in stature, as we've talked about with Sandalphon, the guardian of the earth, being so tall that it would take a 500-year journey on foot to go from his toes to the top of his head. This is the perfect way for Tabata to cross the lore here from Norse lore and blend it with classical Judeo-Christian lore. Anyway, I know this is a really far out theory about Belle being Tetia in her past life, but I do think the point stands that each race of beings have their own specific transformations. One positive transformation and one negative transformation. I think I'll leave it here for now. I'll see you guys in the next video, but definitely be sure to tune in to the next two videos, you guys. One will be very short, and it'll be about Liebe being not only an angel, but a specific spirit. Then the other is yet another possibility of who Asta and or Liebe could be in the grand scheme of things. I'll be making a separate playlist for all the potential possibilities that I've made for these two, since I've got a few different theories, so be on the lookout for that if you are curious. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in to yet another crazy theory, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. This has been Jack Oats to Go. You either know or you don't.
I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Pull up, say what's the deal, bruh? See how I lose my cool any second if they don't hear us. Many people will fear us. Say when you look in the mirror, don't you compare us to anything that get embarrassed. Ha, ha, woo. So many people be talking like they want the problems or something. I noticed that all of you polish and all of you people get punished. It's hard to keep food on your stomach. To all of the hustle keep running. That's hard to stay humble with nothing. We're off of the jungle, we're bugging. So let me come down all of a sudden. I told you that we keep it buzzing. Ha, woo. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed out. Bounce. I ain't feeling nothing cause I'm numbed